Hello everybody, welcome into the Hobby Bar. This is Jason, and welcome. So today we'll be continuing on this mini, Dalila from RN Estudio. I think I got it wrong last time, but that's on me. Anyway, need to work on the base here, get her on the base, and get the gold touched up and the sword touched up. And should be good to go. But yeah. Also, was kind of looking at the green. Maybe wanted to do something with the green on her, but figure that out as we go today. But yeah. Oh yeah, I need to touch up the boots as well, because they're not quite there yet. But we'll work on that. Anyway, if you do any hobbying, feel free to jump in, join along, get some stuff done, all that fun stuff. If you don't, hey, that's cool too. Appreciate you swinging by, hanging out. Hopefully you get whatever you're working on done. And yeah. That, go ahead and start up your own music for the next little bit, and yeah, we'll hopefully get some stuff done. With that, we'll go ahead and get started on this project today. First up, we're bringing in some white primer from Monument Hobbies again, part of their Pro Grill line of stuff. I've been really enjoying using this a whole lot. Can tell I've been using it a lot lately. But yeah. Mostly just doing brush on, because I don't have an airbrush yet. And yeah, don't really want to use rattle cans anymore because that's getting a little expensive for my taste. But yeah, this stuff, really happy with it, but needed to prime the top of this little base here. Again, I wanted to try leaving the rim of the base just plastic, just to see how it works out. I did it on the Blood Rack Viper, and wanted to do it on this mini as well. So next up, we are bringing out some contrast paint, some Citadel Talassar Blue. This stuff I wanted to put all over the sword, just because usually on a metallic sword like this, I would use like Null Oil or Basilicanum Gray, or maybe even like a bluish green, so either make it a dark black metal or make it like a greenish blue metal. This way it sort of looks a little magical. I want to try Talassar Blue just because I haven't used it in a while, so we're going with blue magical sword on this one. Next up, we're breaking out the orange wash from Cephalopod Studios. Just gonna go over all the gold, just give it a wash here with the just to try to make some of the recesses really stand apart. I noticed when looking at it, it looked sort of flat before for the gold, which kind of don't want the metal to look flat. So, just because everything was the same color, even though it's true metallic metal, so like you can see the ridges and everything, it still wasn't quite popping as well as I wanted it. So, I wanted to come in with some orange wash and get that kind of sorted out. Yeah, tends to help with metals to give it a wash at least, or, you know, give it some variance to it, rather than just leave it a plain metal. And yeah, we go ahead and do that with the orange wash here. We're going to be jumping around with paints quite a bit throughout today, so yeah, we're going to be having some fun. But that's because most of it is touch-up work today. So anyway, go ahead and finish up putting this on everything. I also noticed that the parts that I made gold around her legs, I think those are technically the boot cuffs, but oh well, they're gold now, so whatever. Anyway, I'll catch up with you here shortly for the next paint. Alrighty, here we are busting out the Dryad Bark. The white primer had already set at this point, and just wanted to base coat it all this dark brown. If you've seen some of the other stuff I've done before for the way I do these bases, if I break out the Dryad Bark, I'm probably putting on Agrellan Earth over it, and surprise, that's what's going to happen later. Though we do break out some of the scatter material, some of the dirt from rival crafts to put on this a little bit. So we'll be having some fun with this base later on, but for now, just getting a thin coat of Dryad Bark over it, so this way it's that dark brown underneath there for when the cracks start showing up in the Agrellan Earth. Anyway, catch up with you here shortly for the next paint. Alrighty, here we are busting out some Auric Armour Gold from Citadel. This is a very yellow gold, a very, very sharp, bright gold. Now, I wanted to use this as the highlight color for all of our gold armor. So, first it was Retributor armor, which is a very nice gold to start with. And then threw a wash of orange over it, which I tend to like to do the orange. You can also use like a flesh wash or something. If it's Citadel Reikland Flesh Shade is a good one, because it's more of a reddish shade. But I decided to go with the orange because I just wanted a simple color. I didn't need anything fancy. But now we gotta come back in and highlight up all of these gold areas. So, yeah, want to bust out the Auric Armor Gold, because usually I don't use this paint all that much. But, hey, it's gold armor. It's a good excuse to make it a shiny gold. Could also use Vallejo polished gold for basically the same reason. But I wanted to use the Citadel one. Why not? Just getting done. Anyway, catch up with you here shortly for the next paint. Alrighty, here we are busting out some Citadel Runefang Steel. It's one of their brighter silver kind of colors. Not quite as bright as Stormhost Silver, but I wanted to use this to highlight up the blade here that she's holding on to. This way it wasn't just a blue sword. There were some shiny bits of metal sticking out of that blue color. But yeah, same idea as the gold, just going around basically edge highlighting, highlighting up the bladed portion of it, since the blade tends to be shinier than the normal flats of blades, I guess you could say. At least in this style. It tends to help it stand out a little more. But yeah, just real quick doing this. And yeah, there's no other silver parts, so just getting the blade. Anyway, we'll finish up with the Runefang Steel here on the sword, and I'll catch up with you here shortly for the next paints. Alrighty, rapid fire for our multiple colors here. Because I wanted to touch up the face a little bit since the lips weren't quite standing out, so I wanted to try using some cold flesh initially. Wasn't quite happy with how that was working out. So then I changed to frozen flesh, which was the shadow color I was initially using, the real, like, stark dark purple. I wanted to bring this in to use that instead. And was pretty happy with how it turned out with the darker purple. I was keeping it a very thin amount, so that tended to help. And yeah, I do end up using some of it also around her eyes because I wasn't quite happy with how the just like black was sitting in there. So I wanted to use some of this to sort of shadow up the eyes a bit. But because I touched the eyes, I have to come in with Glacier Blue now, which I tend to like to use for eyes. You can tell it's a very pale blue, but I've noticed for the most part, you can get away with it instead of a stark, like just pure white. And eyes aren't really just pure white anyway, so wanted to use some of this for that. Alrighty, here we are busting out some Cephalopod Studios Sacrificial Red. Using this as a sort of highlight color on the hair. Just because it is different enough from Crawdaddy, good old Crawdaddy, but it's also a bit of an orangish hue to it for the red, so I wanted to use this as the highlight color for the hair. And yeah, pretty happy with how that turned out. Though I guess I could highlight towards the tips a bit more, change it up instead of just making it look like a flat color over most of the hair. But that's something I can work on a different mini for hair highlighting. Because still not quite great at that. But anyway, we'll finish up with Sacrificial Red here and move on to the next paint here shortly. Alrighty, here we are moving straight on to Crawdaddy Red. I noticed some of the hair wasn't quite built up with the right color, so I wanted to come in here with good old Crawdaddy Red and hit that area a bit more, and maybe possibly get it to blend a bit, because this was literally right after applying the Sacrificial Red, so maybe it would blend a bit with that. Very quick break here before I came back in. A little bit more Crawdaddy Red, just to really get in that hair color, to make it that nice, strong red. Ready, here we are breaking out some Citadel Abaddon Black, because, like I mentioned at the intro, did have to touch up those leggings, so need to bust out Abaddon Black again for that. Not much else special to say here. This is when I kind of was like, should I do anything about the inner boot now being gold, like gold bands around her legs, instead of like boot cuffs? And I was like, we can leave it like that for now. So we go ahead and just hit the exterior of the boots, make sure to leave the gold at the bottom for the effectively heels. And yeah, go ahead and finish up this process though, and I'll catch up with you here shortly for the next paint. Alrighty, here we are using some Cephalopod Studios Black Knight. I was kind of unhappy with how it looked for the one-piece body portion. So I was like, I want to come in with some Black Knight and put another coat of that over it. But it was a little bit too strong there, and I basically knocked everything down too much. So we bust out some more pale flesh, and just gotta re-highlight some areas with the pale flesh. I think I might have gone a little bit too high again with it from where I wanted to be, but it's where we end up sitting on it. Because I think I kind of like it a little bit. I think it's fine. Anyway, just a quick little touch up there. Next, we bust out the Stormshield from Citadel. This was after it dried for the pale flesh and Black Knight that we just did on the body, on the torso portion. So I wanted to bust this out just to give it a sort of satin varnish look over it. And what I tend to do with Citadel's varnishes, at least, is I'll apply them and then just wet the brush a little bit and just apply it. Use the just a wet brush and just go over it just to try to smooth it out. Because I notice sometimes you'll have brush marks in it if you just choose to do one coat of varnish. And could apply a second coat, but I find that adding a little bit of water seems to tend to help it settle down and make it nice and thin. So that's what I've been doing on it, just to try to even it out. Next we bust out some Ardcoat, and we're going to use the Ardcoat on the legs. It's, to me, like one of the easiest techniques for shiny leather. Just make it a flat black color, nothing fancy, and then go over with a gloss varnish, which Ardcoat's a gloss varnish. And then it'll, no matter which way you're looking at it, it'll get the shine on it. And stuff that's shiny leather tends to not have like a shadow tone to it, I've noticed. It tends to just be... Now for something a little different. We're gonna go through the process of experimenting a bit with base scatter. So, this is why I basically forgot to record when I was playing with the Bloodwrack Viper back there. Was getting some glue onto the base in different areas and then dropping the scatter over it. Now, in hindsight, what I could have done was that flat tool that I'm resting this box on down there that is for applying the Citadel texture stuff. I think what I would do in the future is use that to basically flatten out the glue a little bit. Just because I don't think I have any really junk brushes that I would use for glue quite yet. Or what I could do is basically put a bit of glue onto something hard, like the lid of the wet palette there, and then just use the base, and this way it tries to even out a bit all over everything. And then I could just dunk this into the dirt cup a bit if needed, but I wanted to try to spread it out a bit, doing it this way. I do end up noticing that the way I have it set up, it kind of is a little off balance. And I feel like you can notice that too when I'm kind of dry fitting up where it's gonna, how things are gonna line up. And not super thrilled about that, just because this is gonna, I feel it's gonna just kind of be an example game piece. But it's like, I think it'll be fine in the long run, like no super big deal. So, yeah, I do work over a box for this though, this way I can kind of not make too big of a mess, and then I can also, kind of clean everything back up and sort of try to get the loose bits back into the cup so I don't waste too much of it getting lost everywhere. But anyway, we'll finish up this little process, and I'll catch up with you here shortly for the next paint. Alrighty, here we are moving on to Citadel Agrellan Earth. For this, I wanted to also show the drying process in the top left. Basically that was over the course of an hour for the drying process. And yeah, so I'll just leave that running up there since not much is usually happening up there in the top left. And it's sort of satisfying to watch, and just in case you're curious how it goes. But anyway, we just spread this out over the base and kind of tuck it into some areas just to make sure it all behaves and works properly, and then we just let it do its thing. It's a very simple texture to work with, so that's why I love doing it as much as I can. Alrighty, next up we are breaking out some matte varnish for from Liquitex. Basically what I wanted to do with this was coat over the dirt just to try to help hold it in, because I was kind of nervous since I'm using Elmer's glue all, which thankfully isn't their school grade or school grade glue. Like, it's a bit better than that, but I don't know, I'm still a little nervous about it. So I wanted to use some matte varnish here and try to make sure that it hopefully can hold down with that stuff on top of it. And since it's a matte varnish, it won't change like how light behaves over it. So that's why I wanted to do that. Only downside, not sure how glue will react to it. So that would have been my only like hesitation factor on it for doing it first. But if I put the mini on top first, then would be a bit hard to get to some of the areas with the varnish, just to make sure things are held down. So I wanted to do it before gluing her on. But yeah, we go ahead and knock out this process, and I'll catch up with you here shortly for the last call and the spin. Alrighty, last call everybody, last call. So, for today's last call, pretty happy with how the mini turned out. Relatively quick 2-week job. Did notice that during the spin, I kind of missed where the puffy sleeves end and the bracers begin. There's like a band in there that I forgot. What I think I'll do is just grab some of the leather and put that in there. This way it's like she has that popped collar that's brown leather, and then she can have the leather as sort of between, like sort of an undershirt, I guess you could say, between the big poofy green jacket and skin. So yeah, it can sort of be a brown sort of undershirt. But yeah, overall glad I got something knocked out without going forever, you know. Nice to have a small project you can sneak in there. Not quite sure what the next one will be offhand, but I'm sure we'll figure something out. Yeah, not sure if it'll be another Warhammer project or not though. We'll figure it out. We'll play by ear, like usual. But anyway, glad you all got to hang out today and we'll see how this mini turned out. And yeah, hope you all have a fantastic week. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below. But yeah, with that, hope you all got stuff done. And whether it was hobby or related or not. And I hope you all have a fantastic time out there. So take it easy everybody, and have a good one out there. Catch you around.